Mist floated between ancient trees, the first light of dawn barely touching the emerald canopy of Africa's heart. The forest breathed as one living creature, its pulse the trill of unseen insects, the echo of parrots, the deep, resonant thud of a gorilla's chest reverberating through the mist. That sound, steady, commanding, announced not just power but presence. Somewhere beyond the thick ferns, a silverback stood tall in the gray morning, surveying his world with dark, thoughtful eyes that had watched many seasons come and go. This was his kingdom, humid air scented with earth and fruit, tangled vines that hid paths older than memory, and the quiet, rhythmic life of the troop he guarded. Gorillas were the forest's gentle giants, sculpted in strength but guided by something far softer. They moved with deliberate calm, each gesture weighted with meaning. A young female plucked fruit from a low branch and passed it to her infant. The silverback's gaze followed her for a moment, not with hunger, but with patience. His duty was not just to lead, but to keep balance, to ensure life continued. Far away, in human cities wrapped in glass and steel, few would guess that these forest lives were entwined with theirs. Yet the same species that watched them through camera lenses was also the one capable of saving them, or destroying them. American conservationists had sent funds, scientists, and hope across oceans to preserve this fragile world. Zoos and sanctuaries across the United States mirrored these distant forests, raising gorilla families that had never seen an African dawn but carried its rhythm in their blood. In the rainforest, the air thickened as the rains approached. The season of fruit, renewal, and quiet intimacy had begun. The silverback's chest thumped again, not in challenge but as a call. Deep and slow, it rolled through the undergrowth. The females stirred. Courtship among gorillas was never a battle of violence, it was a dialogue of trust. A female edged closer to him, her movements almost shy. She reached out, her fingers brushing the dark hair along his arm. For a moment, time seemed to still. The silverback lowered his head and rumbled softly, a sound as old as the forest itself, tender and low, carrying the promise of protection. Their bond was not rushed. It unfolded through days of closeness, quiet gestures, shared rest beneath the dripping leaves. Gorillas did not fight for love, they built it through familiarity and calm. When the moment finally came, it was brief, private, and unseen, just another heartbeat in the endless rhythm of the jungle. Yet from that union, a new story had already begun, a fragile spark hidden deep within the mother's womb. Weeks turned into months. The forest shifted its colors, from lush greens to heavy browns, as fruit dropped and new growth rose from the soil. The pregnant female's pace slowed. She ate constantly, choosing tender shoots and wild celery, guided by instincts she never questioned. The silverback watched over her. He did not know the science of birth or blood, but he knew she was different. When the troop rested, he stayed nearer, his massive frame a wall between her and danger. One quiet night, while rain whispered through the canopy, the first cry of new life broke the silence. The baby, impossibly small, clung to its mother's chest with fingers that trembled like new leaves. She held it close, her dark eyes shining with something that needed no name. By morning, the troop gathered nearby, curious but respectful. The silverback approached slowly. His immense hand brushed the ground beside her, and she allowed him to look. The infant blinked up at him, unaware that this towering figure was its guardian as much as its mother. Days passed, then weeks. The baby grew stronger, clinging fiercely to its mother's chest. When she moved, it moved. When she sat, it nestled into the warmth of her fur. The forest accepted this new rhythm, more laughter in the troop, more cautious peace. Youngsters played under the trees, wrestling and tumbling through the mud, their squeals echoing through the valley. The silverback would sometimes join them, sitting like a mountain as tiny hands tugged at his arms and fur. He tolerated it all, his dark eyes glowing with a patience that seemed carved from stone. For the young, play was a lesson. It taught them strength, courage, and the subtle codes of their society, when to yield, when to stand tall. And for the silverback, every game, every clumsy tumble was proof that his world endured. Thousands of miles away, children in the United States pressed their faces against glass walls at zoos, watching families like his. They saw the silverbacks sit with regal calm, mothers cradling infants, juveniles swinging in joyful chaos. They did not see a spectacle, they saw reflections of themselves. Parents smiled, children laughed, and somewhere in that connection, compassion began to grow. But outside these sanctuaries, the forests were shrinking. Machines cut into green horizons. The minerals mined for human progress, used in cell phones, cars, and lights, came from the same earth where gorillas fed. Yet there were still those who refused to give up hope. Across continents, people united. Rangers patrolled with courage, scientists studied by torchlight, and ordinary citizens donated what they could. In schools across America, students learned about the gorilla's struggle and pledged to protect it. At dawn in Rwanda, a ranger moved silently through the mist. The forest was wet, alive, whispering. Then he heard it, the deep, low rumble of a silverback's chest echoing through the fog. He smiled. They were still here. Against poachers, fire, and fear, they had survived another night. In a clearing, the troop emerged. The mother sat beneath a broad-leaved tree, her infant now stronger, curious eyes wide with wonder. The silverback stood beside her, his massive frame bathed in morning light, breath rising like smoke in the chill air. Around them, the forest exhaled, a living cathedral of green. Strength and tenderness, two forces bound together in the same heartbeat. The silverback raised his head and beat his chest once more, a declaration not of conquest, but of life. It was a sound that crossed time and continents, reaching those who listened with open hearts. Because somewhere in every human story, there still beats the same truth: to protect what is gentle, we must also be strong. And as long as the forest answers that call, the world will remember that power and love were never meant to stand apart.